Now, it's a big midweek for sports fans all over the world. The UEFA Champions League returns tonight in Europe. But then that is less than 24 hours before the opening ceremony of the 2018 Commonwealth Games down under in the Gold Coast, Australia. Nigeria will join 70 other countries who are participating in the 2018 Gold Coast Games, where athletes will jostle for medals in 275 events in 19 sports. But the Gold Coast Games has already come under the threat of doping. Cleaners have found syringes and needles at the athletes' games village. This comes on the same day new and tougher doping measures come into force under the new rules. The World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, could hold member associations responsible for their athletes failing drug tests or not complying with the rules. Well, joining us from our Abuja studio is former athlete and now editor of online newspaper gongnews.com, Olajide Fashikun. Glad to have you join us, Jide.
Good morning, Solo.
Right, the Commonwealth Games is here, but the threats of potential cases of doping wouldn't be a good way to welcome the Games after 4 years, is that?
The way drug and athletes go, it's one that has always been a threat to sports everywhere. Athletes and their managers, who are also involved in drugs, are always some kilometers always ahead of the people working on the other side of catching them. And it's so sad that the last host, India, were the first to breach the code of drug issues again in the Gold Coast when some syringes were found in one of the rooms of some of the athletes. I think it's really a very serious threat to the sport entirely everywhere in the world.
Well, I understand that the Indians have been cleared and no cases pushed against them at the moment. But then Nigeria is here with more than 50 athletes across 9 sports. Are we prepared to surpass the Glasgow 2014 record of 36 medals?
If we have to look at the quality of preparation that our nation have put together, then I would say that we are really not prepared to beat the Glasgow records. My basis for my choice of assessing the preparation is given the fact too that as a nation, what is the deliberate preparation policy and funding and even exposure of the athletes have we really put together? The only team that seems to be ready for Gold Coast is actually the wrestling team, because they have consistently been working over and over on their own preparations. But beyond this, every other team that is going to Gold Coast, I wouldn't say that they are as prepared as we prepared for Glasgow. But all the same, there can be some surprises along the line, even in Gold Coast from the Nigerian team. All the same, don't rule out the Nigerian spirit. You can see one or two of them spring some surprises at the games.
In track and field, which is a traditional strong point for Nigeria, do you see any excellence? So some of our best athletes aren't taking part in our traditional strong point. Do you see this crop of athletes pulling the strings here?
If we look at the quality of stage at which Blessing Okagbare, for instance, is now, Blessing is very hot. But again, Blessing is only running the relays, the 4x100 relays. She's not doing the 200, she's not doing the flat. And personally, I think I appreciate the fact that she's even considering to run for the country, given the fact that when she was injured, we abandoned her. And beyond this, the home-based athletes have had a consistently good preparation back at home. And with the quality of performance we have seen from them for some time now, one would say too that some of them can get to to Gold Coast and blossom and hit the international stardom. Two athletes come to mind quickly, and these are the two javelin athletes, Wainaga and Samuel Kure. Beyond of them, I think a whole lot of other Nigerians are going to also use this opportunity to break into international stardom.
Well, it's good to hear from you that despite, well, a bit of skepticism there, that you have picked out two athletes you think would excel. But then you talked about exposure and preparations, and the Super Eagles are also preparing for the World Cup, and all manner of funds have been raised for them. FIFA is going to give them $12.5 million. The federal government has voted 3 billion naira. Of course, 12.5 is 4.5 billion naira. And then ex-internationals, backed by the minister, are raising 1.2 billion. How come going into these games, no one is talking about fundraising for Team Nigeria to the Commonwealth Games?
You see, when it comes to issues of fundraising in this part of the world, Nigeria is always behind. And it's always also sad that we sometimes behave like the Bourbons of France, who learned nothing from history and forgot nothing to history. Nigerians will quickly remember, too, that in 1994, when we qualified for the World Cup for the first time, there was a fundraising that was done. That fundraising was what we used in prosecuting the preparation for the Nations Cup in Tunisia, which we won, and went ahead to the US and did very well. Part of that same fund was what was used in preparing the Nigerian team for the Atlanta Olympics, which seems to become the signpost of our international sports calendar. But beyond of all this, what have we done ever since? Even when the Team Nigeria was brought into place, the Team Nigeria incorporated after the execution of the 2003 All-African Games. Some people somewhere within the civil service system killed that fund. But outside of this, what have we done? And that's part of the reasons why some of us do not believe in this current short, quick, all this fire brigade approach of raising funds. Funds are supposed to be raised based on trust and make the people to believe in what you are doing. And you also must show some level of accountability. But beyond of all this, I think we didn't do too well in terms of raising funds for sports development in the country.
Just 30 seconds before I let you go. How many medals do you think Nigeria will win at the Games? And in what sport?
Counting medals is a question of comparing what are the chances and what are the circumstances the athletes will be facing on the pitch. So that is why it will be difficult, except if I want to play on the side of magic to say this is the quantity of medals Nigeria is going to be winning.
All right, thank you so much there, former athlete Olajide Fashikun, and the editor of Gong Online newspaper, gongnews.com.